A very good morning, students. This is a demonstration for the just to tell you about the overview of the brain. Okay, this is since it is the first demonstration in the brain, I will tell you the various parts of the brain. And you know that the brain and spinal cord, they are the part of the central nervous system. That means the brain is placed inside the cranial cavity. The whole thing is the brain, and this is placed inside the cranial cavity, okay, which is in the skull. That is in the brain box, okay. Then at the margin of the foramina magnum or just below the foramina magnum, there is it continues with that the brain, that is medulla oblongata. It continues with that of the spinal cord, and spinal cord is present in the vertebral canal, okay. Thus the brain and spinal cord, they are the part of the central nervous system. Now, if you will see this brain, this is such a big structure and it weighs almost around 1.4 kg, that is 1400 grams at least in the male, okay. And the whole of this brain surface is covered by the gray matter. Now, since you must have read in your general anatomy classes what is gray matter, okay. Gray matter here in the brain, which is covering here, is called as also the cortex. The gray matter means the collection of the neurons within the central nervous system. Here this collection of the neuron which is on the surface is called as the cortex, okay. Now some gray matter is also present inside the brain. It's not everywhere. See this, everywhere it is covered by the gray matter, which is the neurons, okay. But then if we will cut a section of this, we will see that there are some collection of the gray matter which are within the substance of the brain, deep inside the brain, and this collection of the gray matter within the brain will be called as nuclei, okay. Now in case of the brain, though the gray matter is present on the outer surface of the brain, but in the spinal cord it is just reverse. It is present inside, okay, and the white matter is outside. Here the gray matter is outside and white matter is inside in the brain, especially in the cerebrum and cerebellum. Otherwise, in the spinal cord, gray matter is inside and the white matter is that of the outside. Now, you must have learned in general anatomy class also that brain consists of the three part, okay. This is the whole brain is here, okay, which you are seeing here, and this is divided into three different parts. For example, forebrain, the whole thing, the bigger thing, this one, this big part of the brain, this whole thing is called as the forebrain. And then there is a small area which I will show you here. This small area here deep inside is that of the midbrain, and then there is a third portion called as the hindbrain. So the brain is divided into three parts: forebrain, midbrain, and this part here it is called as the hindbrain. But if you will see the hindbrain, it itself consists of the three different parts. In the hindbrains are there. This part of the hindbrain is the pons, which is convex from side to side as well as from above downward. It is called as the pons. Pons below is continuous with that of the medulla or medulla oblongata, and posterior to the pons and medulla, this part of the brain is called as cerebellum. You can see, I will just show you in this view also. This is the cerebellum. Thus, what are the parts of the hindbrain? Pons, medulla, and cerebellum. And this hindbrain is connected with that of the forebrain, that is this big part of the brain, with the help of a very narrow part of the brain where this pointer is there. This is called as the midbrain. So now you know what are the parts of the brain. Just revise with me: forebrain, midbrain, and that of the hindbrain. Hindbrain consists of the pons, medulla, and cerebellum part, okay. Now, there is another term used, okay, which is called as the brain stem. And brain stem consists of the three part. Since by this time you know that this small portion deep inside, okay, is the midbrain, which connects the forebrain with that of the hindbrain here. So this is the midbrain. The brain stem thus will consist of three parts: the midbrain, the pons and medulla. Midbrain, pons and medulla, they are the part of the brain stem. Just this was a general introduction of the brain and its part, okay. And as I told you, brain is inside the cranial cavity, and below it is continuous through the medulla with that of the spinal cord. But let us see what are the parts of this brain, okay, first, and what we call to the each of the part. Let us see first. We will ascend up. That means from medulla we will go to the description of pons, to that of the midbrain, and then we will come to the description of the largest part, forebrain, which is made up of the cerebrum, right and left lobes. Okay, let us come to the medulla. This part is medulla. Here unfortunately it is not complete, otherwise the medulla will extend an inch little below here. So from here to here it is the medulla. It is also known as I said, medulla oblongata. So this part is the medulla, and medulla, as I said, below is continuous with the spinal cord, and above it is continuous with this structure, and this structure is called as the pons. So it is above continuous with that of the pons. Now, if you see this pons, as I said that it is convex from side to side, as well as it is convex from above downward. This surface of the brain is the basilar surface, or sometimes called as the ventral surface. If you will trace the pons on the lateral side, okay, on lateral side here, you can see here this, on the lateral side, this is called as the middle cerebellar peduncle. Why this is pons is continuous? That means this peduncle is going inside this part of the brain called as cerebellum, which is part of the hindbrain. So this part is called as the middle cerebellar peduncle on either side, right side as well as left side. And why it is called middle cerebellar peduncle? Because there will be a superior as well as inferior also, which I am going to tell you and show you later, okay. But here you can see the middle cerebral peduncle continuing the pons to the cerebellum on either side, okay. If you will see the pons, in the midline there is a shallow groove is seen, and in this groove lies this artery, which is partly I have kept it here, not completely removed, and this artery which lies in the groove of the pons onto the ventral aspect of the pons, this artery is the basilar artery, okay. This is the basilar artery. Now, after learning something about that of the medulla, let us see some more detail of the medulla. This fissure is the anteromedian fissure of medulla, and on either side there are these two swellings are seen, okay. These swellings are called as pyramid, and then there is a groove lateral to the pyramid. By this time you must be knowing what is lateral, okay. Lateral to this pyramid there is another groove is seen, and this is anterolateral sulcus. And after that, lateral to this sulcus there is another swelling. Can you see this swelling here on this side as well as this swelling on this side? This is called as the olive, okay, or olivary swelling. This is made up of the olive, right. So after this, you will see that there will be other structure of the pons which are still lateral, and this is the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Okay, I hope that you will be able to see this inferior cerebellar peduncle on either side. So this is the pons and the medulla. The third part in the hindbrain is cerebellum. you can see here the cerebellum. This consists of the two lobes, right lobe as well as left lobe. Since we are seeing it from the under surface, that is the ventral, this is the right lobe and this is the left lobe, because the anatomical position of the brain is like that, and we are seeing it from that of the under surface. So this is the right lobe of cerebellum and this is the left lobe of the cerebellum. Okay, and this cerebellum, if you will see carefully, it is showing the transverse ridges. Okay, very fine transverse ridges are seen in both the hemispheres, cerebellar hemisphere, right as well as left. Let us come to see the midbrain. If you will see the midbrain, I will not be able to show you a detailed structure of the midbrain as it is located deep inside. Okay, and with the help of the book I will be showing you what is to be seen in this part, because there are blood vessels which I don't want to remove from this portion of the midbrain. Now I will show you this diagram from the book, what is called as the neuroanatomy for medical students, and it is written by me, published by the Walters Kluwer. And here I am going to show you the part of the midbrain which is seen in this depression. Let us see here this diagram. I hope that it is well focused, and in this diagram you can see that these are the structures which are to be seen in the middle, or I mean say in the bottom of this depression where midbrain. This is the area of the midbrain, and these are the blood vessels which are seen in our structure also. These two rounded swelling, though not the part of the midbrain, but it is the mammillary bodies, and just below it is a very small area is that of the midbrain. And then on the sides, okay, after removal of the blood vessel, it will look something like this. Okay, I hope that it is properly focused. These are two mammillary bodies, and these are the two rope-like structure called as the crus cerebri. And this crus, in between these two crus cerebri, right, this depression and this crus cerebri, right from the upper margin of pons, they are the part of the midbrain. And this depression here between two crura cerebri is the posterior perforated substance. Okay, so you have seen the two different structures, I mean to say the part of the midbrain. If you will go to the posterior aspect of the midbrain, which is not seen here, but I will let you know this posterior aspect of the midbrain, okay, in an isolated photograph, will show you the four swelling. Two upper swellings are called as the superior colliculus and the inferior colliculi. Both, I mean say plural is colliculi and the singular is colliculus. So two on right side and two on left side, these are the colliculus or swelling which are seen on the posterior aspect of the midbrain. I think this much is enough at this stage to see in the overview of the brain. Now let us come to the forebrain. So we have completed the hindbrain, we have seen the midbrain. Now let us come to see that of the forebrain. As I said that this forebrain is made up of the two cerebral hemisphere, cerebrum. It is made up of cerebrum, and deep inside is the collection of the gray matter, okay, which we can only see after giving a cross section. And this is the cerebrum. Right cerebral hemisphere, we are seeing it from the top. This is the right cerebral and this is the left, which are separated by the deep fissure where I am passing my finger, and this is called as the longitudinal fissure. You can see the extent of the longitudinal fissure. It is going right up to the cerebellum, where this is that longitudinal fissure, some separating it into two these. Now deep in the bottom of this where my finger is there is a connections going from right to left cerebral hemisphere, that is called as the corpus callosum. It is known as corpus callosum. Okay, if you are seeing this cerebral hemisphere right and left, you are seeing that everywhere it is covered by the gray matter in the similar way as cerebellum was also covered by the gray matter. And I told you already, gray matter is the collection of the neurons or nerve cell. Now this gray matter which is covering to the cortex of the cerebrum, right cerebral hemisphere and left, is called as the gray matter or cortex. Okay, gray matter. Deep to it, if you will cut a section deep to this, we will get the white matter, which is nothing but the collection of the nerve fibers. On this gray matter or cortex, you are saying the ridges and grooves, and these ridges and grooves, they are called as the sulci and gyri. We will learn in great detail about this sulci and gyri in the right and the left cerebral hemisphere. Deep inside the cerebrum, there are some spaces. They are called as the ventricular spaces, filled with that of the cerebrospinal fluid, and some nuclei are also there, that is collection of the neuron deep inside the white matter of cerebrum, which are called as the basal nuclei. With the help of the diagram, I will show you now a coronal section of this cerebrum, where you can see the white matter, which you are not being able to see this white matter, and then you will be also able to see that of the nuclei. See, this is a very simple line diagram, and this is after the coronal section of the cerebrum. You can see that the longitudinal fissure is here at the bottom, which is the corpus callosum is there. This gray matter is here on the surface, which is collection of neuron, and deep to this cortex or gray matter, this is the white matter, and within the white matter there are some gray matter. Okay, and this collection of the gray matter within this white matter, they are called as nuclei or the basal nuclei. For example, the caudate nucleus, the thalamus, the lentiform nucleus, like that. And then you are also seeing these spaces, and these spaces which are in the cerebrum are called as the right and left lateral ventricle, and in midline there is a space also between the two thalami, and this is called as the third ventricle. So this was just a short video on the overview of the brain, just to introduce you with the brain. We will now learn the brain in great details in the subsequent video. Thank you very much for watching this video.